Good morning, everyone. We'll be getting started here shortly. I apologize, I'm having a little technical difficulty this morning. Can everyone see my screen this morning? Great. All right, let me get all these other things going. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining this morning. We apologize for the little delay here. We do ask that you mute your mics if you have them on. It'll be short and sweet meeting today. So we'll go ahead and get started. I am Christy Ballou, the Director of Teacher Certification, and we're going to start with our certification update. So good news, as of this past Friday at like 11 or something, we have been able to resolve some of our technical issues. All of them have not been resolved completely, but we were able to resolve enough of them so that we were able to resume all normal operations in our online portal. So thanks to all of our tech folks and our vendors that have been working diligently to get that taken care of. Again, we are still experiencing some technical issues. So if you notice any kind of anomaly, like you submitted an application for one individual and it was issued for a different one or something, please let us know. I mean, hopefully that does not happen, but we are experiencing a few technical difficulties still that we're working diligently to get those resolved. So if you notice anything out of the ordinary, please let us know. We do appreciate your patience during this time. We have also been able to, we're working on finishing up the month of August submissions. So if you are wondering about, processing where it is, the technical difficulties did not help at all, to be honest, but we're finishing up processing the month of August. And so we should be getting to September submissions here shortly. We were noticing that some of the applications that were submitted in August were submitted incorrectly. And we kicked some of those back. They didn't have the appropriate fee in many cases, or in a lot of cases, they didn't have 2 forms of ID. So what I would like to make you aware of is please read the email messages carefully and follow those instructions so as not to lose your place in line. For example, if it's just a payment receipt that is lacking, we'll respond via email saying, hey, please respond to this email to give me the payment receipt, and you won't lose your place in line. Now, if it's something that has the forms of ID, because that has social security number information on that, that can't be done via email. That has to be done with a submission. So those particular items will have to close out and have you resubmit. But what I would encourage you to do is if you have any applications from August that you receive feedback on, and you know that the same feedback may be provided to something that you submitted in September or October, I would encourage you to review those submissions that you submitted in September and October. And if your application is currently in the unassigned queue, you can use your history option to upload those missing documents to correct that submission, and you won't lose your place in line for that submission. Just wanted to encourage you to do that. Now, keep in mind, if it is in a pending queue or assigned to a specialist or closed, you can't upload anything to those files. We won't be notified, or we won't technically receive the new document. it won't be something that we would be able to review. So you can do that as long as it is in the unassigned queue, and I would encourage you to do that. And again, we do appreciate your patience while we're working through these technical issues and this backlog due to so many factors. But again, we're just finishing up the applications for the month of August, and we'll be starting on September here shortly. So if you did receive some feedback on something that you submitted in the month of August, and you know that you submitted another application just like that, this will allow you to, if you use your unassigned queue or the history tab, as long as it's unassigned, you can correct those submissions. And we do encourage you to do that because we don't want to have the back and forth either. Just to make sure that you're aware, you should definitely now be using the new applications. Since all of those policy changes were approved, we've published the updated versions of each application. And they're now available on teachlouisiana.net. We did continue accepting that older version through September 30th. So that meant that anything that was submitted October 1st or after has to be on the new application forms. It has to be completed electronically, and it has to include a copy of the driver's license and social security card. So anything that was submitted October 1st that was on that older version of this application, we're going to return that to you unprocessed and ask that you use those new applications. We do try and make it simple for you to where revision dates are included both on the application and on the website to assist you and determine if you have that latest application. And so we do highly encourage you to, prior to submitting it, please make sure that you have the most current version of the application. The next, are there any questions for that piece? Let's see, I do see a few things in chat. Let me see if I can get that. Looks like we have a question about 2 forms of ID. So there was a question about when they had to submit 2 forms of ID. So the grace period that we included, which is I think what you're talking about, Teresa, is the grace period. If you submitted an application that said all forms must be completed and it requires a driver's license and 2 forms of ID, then with that application, it needed to have that. But if you had used this, because there was that grace period overlap where we were allowing the old version of the application to be submitted, didn't have those instructions on it. If you submitted those old applications that didn't have those instructions on it, we're not kicking it back for that at this moment. 10-1, everything has to be new application, 2 forms of ID. I hope that clears up that question. Are there any other questions for anyone, from anyone? Please feel free to type it in the chat or take yourself off of mute. Kim looks like she's saying, I noticed a couple of certification areas for the CTTIE certification are no longer listed on the new application dropdown. Are those no longer available? That is correct. So we've worked diligently with our career and tech team to get those applications all in alignment with what the career and tech team feels is appropriate. What the career and tech team has been working on is streamlining all those SIP areas or certification areas. And where before you might have had 5 different certification areas that were very specific, they've grouped these into the more generic field. And so in our new application for CTTIE, there is a beautiful crosswalk or document that kind of shows, it has a definition of the particular certification area. It gives examples of work history. It also goes back and says, if you use the previous SIP area in this particular area, this is what the new SIP area will be. So that new CTTIE application hopefully will help you take a look at what you should be requesting if it's no longer on that drop-down menu. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Ask a Question feature. You can also always email jumpstart@la.gov because they truly are the experts for CTTIE. Or of course, you can schedule office hours and discuss that individual situation. Any other questions? All right. If there are no other questions, I will turn it over to my colleague for the policy update.
Yeah, Bessie met last week and they approved a revision to Bulletin 130. It's a continuation of a 2021 policy. Of course, Bulletin 130 is our what we call our compass policy. So current policy requires that 50% of the personnel evaluation for teachers and administrators to be based on a qualitative measure of teacher and administrator performance, and shall, this is the important part, shall include a minimum of 2 observations or site visits. The proposed revision approved by the board would, for the 21-22 year, just like we did in the 2021 school year, that 50% of the evaluation based on the qualitative measure include 1, not 2, but 1 announced observation for teachers or administrators. However, any teacher scoring or earning a rating of ineffective or effective emerging shall be observed a second time. At the same time, if you are rated highly effective or emerging proficient, you can always request that second observation if you wish, but it wouldn't be required. This is in response to the COVID year and then also some of the natural disasters the state has gone through over the last couple of years. And it really is giving our principals an opportunity to focus their efforts on those struggling teachers, as opposed to teachers that are highly effective or emerging proficient. When we instituted this policy last year, it was very well received by both principals and superintendents. And we thought that given we're still going through some of the effects of COVID-19, as well as some hurricanes, it would be wise if we continued this policy for another year. Again, 1 announced observation required. If you score effective, highly effective, or emerging proficient, you are not required to get that second. If you score effective, emerging, or ineffective, then you are required to get that second observation. So that was the major revision approved by the board this past month. Moving into the December meeting, we will have some revisions to align policy with state law. These will revolve around student discipline, over the last several months. And then perhaps we can start getting into some of those literacy updates in response to Senate Bills 216, 222. Regarding the science of reading, what have you. So those are the big issues that we're going to try and address from a regulatory perspective over the next several months. But this one is indeed in place for you all to relay back up to your principals or superintendents if you'd like.
Ryan, there's a question in the chat that says, will they need to duplicate the observations?
Let's see, we have someone in the chat. This one. Will we need to duplicate the observation score for the second observation on SIS again this year? That's correct. So the exact same process that you all used for 2021, that same process is in place for 21-22. So that's how you would do it. From Georgia, will teachers receive VAM scores this year that will be included in their evaluation score? Sorry. All right, so will teachers receive VAM scores this year that will be included in their evaluation score? Georgia, I'm gonna reach out to Jenny Moctezuma on our educator prep team, but she will be in touch with you. I don't wanna misspeak on that one. Can a district require 2 evaluations on all individuals? We're setting a minimum bar there. So if you, as a district, would like to require the 2 evaluations, that's certainly well within your purview. What we're saying is that you're not required to. If you want to go above and beyond that policy, you're very welcome to do that.
Good morning, Matt Scruggins here. St. Landry, Ryan.
Yeah.
Good morning. I was not able to hear your response to Paul's question in the chat. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had Bluetooth issue. Well, we need to duplicate the observation score for the second observation on SIS again this year. That's correct. So we're using the exact same process that we used for 2021 and 21-22. So last year, we duplicated that score. That will continue to carry over that practice for 21-22 if you do have a teacher scoring highly effective or effective proficient on that first observation. That's correct.
Thank you.
Suzanne, same thing. We will use the same process as 2021 for 21-22 in terms of completing that second observation. And to George's question, I'm going to connect Georgia with Jenny Moctezuma on our educator prep team to walk through all of the VAM applications for this year. A couple of key dates and meetings coming up at the agency. It's a pretty busy next several weeks for us from an advisory council standpoint. I won't speak on the TSAC meeting. I'll allow Christy to do that. But coming up this week, we have an early childhood care and education advisory council. I don't know how concerned you all are with that work, but they will be considering some accountability issues for birth to 3 that we haven't considered in some time for our early learning centers. So that's a big issue that this group will be hearing about at this meeting, as well as the November meeting of that group. Our special education advisory panel will be meeting on November 17th. Again, the Early Childhood Care and Education Advisory Council will meet again on November 17th to talk about CCAP issues primarily. We have a Superintendent's Advisory Council on November 18th. We haven't populated that agenda just yet, but I would imagine some of the conversation will be around some of the legislation that we are enacting in state policy that we talked about earlier, again, discipline, learning pods, what have you. We have an accountability commission meeting here on December 6th. Again, we're still a little ways out, so we haven't populated that agenda, but just wanted to get it on y'all's radar that is happening. And then finally, Bessie meets in December on the 14th and 15th of the month. Also, our Bessie and Board of Regents joint meeting, which we have twice a year, will happen at that meeting. A couple of things that I'd point out for that meeting is we're looking really deeply into teacher retention and some of the shortages that we're finding, particularly in the STEM areas. We've been working with Board of Regents and TRSL to look into some of the return to work practices, and maybe if there's a way to incentivize retirees to return back to the classroom. But that's part of a longer term discussion that will be on that agenda. So if you're interested in that type of information, please feel free to either join in person or view the stream of that meeting. And Christy, did you want to talk about TSAC?
Sure. November 4th is our last TSAC meeting for this year. I am working to get next year's meeting dates scheduled, and then we will finalize those on the November 4th meeting. So should have an update for you next month on what next year's Teacher Certification Appeals Council meetings, what that schedule will look like. As usual, the deadline to have an appeal in for this November 4th meeting has already passed. The participants will know the decision of the council that day unless that decision is deferred. And then we'll just, it'll be business as usual moving forward after that. Does anyone have any other questions for us that they need answered while we're on the call today? All right, so there's a question about the driver's license and social security card submission, about the deadline. So during the month of August and September, the guidance that we provided was if you're using the new application and the new application indicates that it needs to be electronically completed or it needs the driver's license and social security card, then it needs to be included with that application. If you are using the previous version of the application that did not indicate that, then those were not required because that was not in the instructions. And so whenever we are bumping back any of these applications, it's based on that guidance. Now, as of October 1st, all applications need to be on the new application and they all need to be completed electronically, and driver's license and social security card. So I hope that answers that question. So it should have only been bumped back if it was on the new application that was requiring that information. If you got something that was bumped back from that had an old application that did not require that information, then that's, you know, an error on our part. Please feel free to reach out and let me know, and I'll be happy to take a look into that. It's always a little confusing during these transition periods because we want to allow you to use what you've had out there if you started an application. So I do appreciate your patience during this transitionary period. Any other questions? All right, looks like there are no other, oh, and there comes one. Driver's license and social security for TA applications. You know, I've got to look at that application. I don't remember what our decision was for that, to be honest. Give me just 1 second. I apologize. All the applications that we have, I don't know, there's like over 90. I don't remember what we decided on that one. Yes, we are requiring a copy of social security card and driver's license with that one. And that likely, thinking about it, that likely has to do with the fact that that's who those people are, that's how they're identified. And so that would be required across all of our applications. Sorry about that. It's Monday morning, not completely thinking straight. Any other questions? All right. Does anybody else on the team have anything else they need to share? Okay, well, thank you all for joining. Again, we do appreciate your patience while we are still working through some of our technical difficulties. And if you noticed anything that is any sort of anomaly, please, please, please let us know, because until we know about it, we can't get it fixed. Thank you all, and you get some time back today. Y'all have a good day.